we think of a nuclear weapon, the image which usually comes to mind is the vast mushroom clouds of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, or the Cold War tests in the Pacific and Russia. The destructive force of these weapons was measured in the thousands or millions of tons of TNT equivalent. These were city busters designed to flatten entire areas. But within the history of nuclear weapons development, there was another different but fascinating question, one that engineers worked on in the 1950s and 60s. And this was, just how small could you make a nuclear bomb and still have it work? The idea of small isn't simply about shrinking explosive yield. It touches on the physics of chain reactions, the engineering limits of implosion, the logistics of deployment, and the politics of control. It also intersects with our modern-day concerns about drones, terrorism, and proliferation. So this is the story of miniature nuclear weapons, from the physics of critical mass to the Cold War's smallest bombs and today's security nightmares. Unlike conventional explosives,
Alright, Shalom, Shalom. I'm Y'all coming at you with another lesson. Straight out of the Lions Den camp of Yasha'Allah. But before I get started with this lesson, I would like to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Ha, Rekah, Kodash, Ma'amath. Definitely want to give double honors to the elder apostles of GMS and their elders. Definitely want to give double honors to my elder apostle, Ahar One, Bon Yasha'Allah of the Lions Den camp, located right here in Jacksonville, Florida. Shalom to the sincere men, women, and children, to the Lions Den camp, and to the rest of the elect that's out there that believe on the names of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. All right, Shalom. All right, today's lesson is going to be going into prophecy. All right, and this lesson was inspired through the spirit of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, by a few things today. All right, one, I've been seeing a lot of things on social media about nuclear bombs don't exist. All right. So we're going to clear that up today. Two, how smaller nukes or nuclear bombs could potentially kick off World War III. All right. And as well as the end time prophecy and what the end time prophecy says based off of what's going to happen to America, all right, or Babylon, should I say. All right. So without further ado, let's get further into the video, and then we'll go get into some prophecy. All right. Yeah, right. This edifying. This lesson is edifying.
Nuclear devices can't simply be scaled up or down like sticks of dynamite. Certain isotopes, such as uranium-235 and plutonium-239, are called fissile because their large nuclei are on the edge of stability. If one of these large nuclei is struck by a neutron, they can split, that's the fission part, into two smaller nuclei, and in the process release 2 to 3 neutrons as well as about 200 megaelectron volts of energy per atom. It's these 2 to 3 other neutrons that can then strike other atoms of uranium or plutonium, which can then split and then release more neutrons and then energy and so on and so forth, until it becomes what's known as a runaway nuclear chain reaction. However, for this to happen, you need enough fissile atoms packed close enough together so that on average, each fission product releases at least one more fission. If the mass is too small, too many of the neutrons escape before hitting other nuclei and the reaction fizzles out. This is called subcritical. At the threshold, where each fission leads to exactly one more fission, the material is then called critical. This is how nuclear reactors work. There is a chain reaction, but it's controlled and it doesn't run away. To make an atomic bomb, each fission has to produce more than one sustained reaction. It has to multiply the result with each stage. Then the reaction is known as supercritical. But even...
Alright, so for those who say nuclear missiles don't exist, right? Esau was blessed with the wisdom, all right, from the left-hand side to be able to go into what they would call physics and science, right? To be able to split the atoms, all right. This wisdom was given unto them, all right. But again, just to show some pictures of nuclear bombs, nuclear explosions, all right. Even so much to where they have, broken down into the science for you, all right. Let's grab some presets real quick, man. All right, go to. All right, Jeremiah 50:25. Yahweh hath opened his armory and have brought forth the weapons of his indignation, for this is the work. All right, matter of fact, let's jump up. So, let's go to 24. Jeremiah 50:24. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon. Right, you know who that's talking about, right? The U.S. It says, and thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught because thou hast striven against the Lord, right? Yahweh, right? So that snare that was laid for them, right, was spoken of earlier in this video, right? Let's go to it. Matter of fact, all right. Speaking of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, come on now. I guess it don't want to pop up. The video don't want to pop up for me. All right, it's lucky.
When we think of a nuclear weapon, the image which usually comes to mind is the
It's that
vast
snare.
mushroom clouds of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, or the Cold War tests in the Pacific and Russia.
Right.
But this
It says, and thou art also taken, O Babylon. Because now other countries now have that same technology to where what Russia is in the lead right now, right, with his nuclear missiles, his ICBMs, right, going into the Satan 1, Satan 2, just for example, the Tsar Bomba, right, to where that snare has been laid. Now these countries, because of what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, now these countries can do the same thing unto the same ones who created it, all right, and that's what the prophecy goes into. It says, thou art found and also caught because thou hast striven against Yahweh. Yahweh hath opened his armory and have brought forth the weapons of his indignation, for this is the work of the Lord, God of hosts, in the land of the Chaldeans. See? Come against her from the utmost border upon her storehouse, cast her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left. All right, again, World War III nuclear destruction, right? It's prophesied in the Bible, man, for this place to be destroyed, man. So I was having a conversation earlier with a guy, from a coworker, and he was basically trying to say how World War III could potentially kick off due to a nuclear bomb, and I'm like, it could be right. If it pops off that way, that would allow everybody to start attacking. All right. So let's go to the video real quick, because the man was talking about how America was able to build backpack bombs. All right, I think it's further up here.
in 1972 it was retired. During the 1960s, the US and the Marines collaborated on a variant of the W-54 which was adapted into the Special Atomic Demolitions Munition, or the SADM, or SADM, which could be up to a 1 kiloton yield. This was a literal backpack bomb, and called for a two-man team which would either parachute behind enemy lines or arrive by sea to plant the weapon in a harbour or some other target which was reachable by sea. They would plant the bomb, set the timer, and escape to a waiting nearby craft. In practice, the Saddam was more likely to be a weapon of psychological warfare than practical strategy. It
Right.
also showed up the
Right. Again, that would be more like psychological warfare. A quick, and this could potentially, just like in ancient time when Nero, tried to blame the Jews for that huge fire for burning down Rome. So, same thing could happen today. It's a possibility. But the end prophecy of it all is that it's going to be ICBMs falling from the sky that's going to destroy this place. That's the prophecy. All right. Now, how it kicks off, if somebody, it could be a small terrorist attack or a fake terrorist attack. All right. On any side, that could potentially kick it off. And, once one bomb is set off, that gives right for all nations to, you know, shoot at her. Speaking of the scriptures, roughly paraphrasing. How YouTube be, but right. So let's go to Revelations, right, 6:12, and it reads, "And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake." Right. Why was there a great earthquake? It says, "And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood." Right. Because of nuclear destruction. Right. I'm gonna come right back to this. Let me go to 2 Peter 3:10. All right, and it reads, "But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise." Right, that's that great noise, that nuclear destruction. Right, that Zarbomba, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Right, going to that nuclear blast. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burnt up. Right. All right, going right back to Revelation 16, 6:13, Salakia. All right, and 6:12. "And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake." Right, because as we continue to read, right, we're gonna get into the scriptures, in verse 13, where it goes into it's gonna look like stars falling from heaven. Where ICBMs it's going to be that many ICBMs falling from the sky to come down and to destroy this place, man. All right, going into nuclear destruction, right? That's why it says, "And there was a great earthquake." Right, that's that boom, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, right, to where you can barely even see the sun, like you're looking through a thick filter, double filter, a triple filter, something like that, right? But it says, "And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood." Right, that's going into all of that nuclear fallout, right, from the nuclear destruction, Slucky, right, where it will make the blood moon, right, it'll make the moon look pure like it's blood, like pinkish, reddish color. It says, "And the stars of heaven fell." Right, this is not talking about Hollywood stars. All right, this is talking about ICBMs, all right, nuclear missiles, all right, "and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind." Right, and what's the wind? All right, let's go to Jeremiah 51, and it read, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I will rise up against," and there it go again, "Babylon, and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me a destroying wind." Right, it says, "And will send unto Babylon," right, that's that nuclear destruction. Right, it says, "And I will send unto Babylon fanners, enemies, that shall fan her, and shall empty her land, for in the day of trouble there shall be against her round about. Against him that bendeth, let the archer, right, nuclear missiles, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigading, right, in his protection, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts, right. Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans, right. So just going into that nuclear destruction, man. It's gonna come through ICBMs being shot off from missile silos, from submarines, all right, dropping out the sky, like, I mean, stars falling from heaven, man. All right, quick something real quick. Right, that was them destroying winds, so like, but right. Going back to Revelation 6 and 13, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs. This is the prophecy for Babylon the Great. Man. All right. Rather, it's a small nuclear bomb, backpack bomb, right, that kicks it off. Rather, it's a false attack, a terrorist attack, or a real terrorist attack on any side that kick it off. The end goal, the end point of it all is going to be nuclear destruction, where Babylon will be destroyed and the children of Israel will be delivered out of it. All right, that's the point. All right. Matter of fact, we're gonna go right back. We're gonna come right back. Right. Let's finish it up real quick. And fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. That's that destroying winds, man, that we were just reading, right? All right, and it says, and the heavens departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places, right? Showing you, going right into nuclear destruction, man. Right.
When we think of a nuclear weapon, the image which usually comes to mind is the vast mushroom clouds of Hiroshima,
Right.
Nagasaki, or the Cold War tests in the Pacific
clouds,
and Russia.
Man.
For this,
right, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and every mountain and island were moved out of their places, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountain, and said to the mountains, right? Because they trying to hide in the bunkers. That's what we would call them today, right? Going into definitely the people in high places like presidencies, the governments, all the high elite government people. All right, the banking families, all the rich, wealthy. They show it to you in the movies, man. But anyway, it says, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, right? Because they know it's Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, man. When Yahweh Shai show up, to make every knee bow, man. All these nations, and to take over all these nations, man. And he will be wearing many crowns in that day. Right, it says, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Right, nobody. Man, nobody. But I got a couple things, right, we want to show you real quick, though, before we close out. Right. Yeah. These men was really strapping bombs to themselves. So earlier today, right, I was reading an article about, I was trying to find it a few minutes ago, but I was reading an article about one of the bases, one of the military bases here in America, was shut down due to a drone flying up over it. Right, just a regular small drone. All right, and they shut the base down. All right, so it was just interesting because I was watching this video, and they brought up something about drones. All right, which also could play a major part, you know, in one of the military strategies. I say it like that.
Friendly troops. This is the reason why the Soviets made massive bombs like the 50 megaton Black Warrior almost unusable, and it was retired within a decade. The SADMs lasted longer into the 1980s. Their main value was forcing Soviet planners to worry about hidden nukes sabotaging key infrastructure. But as time went by, conventional weapons increased in accuracy, and there was no fallout effect if they were to be used on an area which was expected to be captured by friendly troops. This is the reason why the Soviets made massive bombs like the 50 megaton Tsar bomber. Their missiles weren't that accurate, but it doesn't matter if it's a kilometre or two off target when the total annihilation radius is 35 kilometres. So if the SADM is that accurate, but it doesn't matter if it's a kilometre or two off target when the total annihilation radius is 35 kilometres. So
Right, so that's what it's about. To turn this place into a lake of fire. Right, the end time prophecy, nuclear destruction. But check this out.
if the SADM was the Cold War's nuclear backpack, then drones are its modern equivalent. A 25 kilogram payload is well within the capabilities of larger unmanned aerial vehicles, and even some commercial models. In theory, a compact nuclear charge could be flown into a target by remote control and be almost undetectable at very low levels. The physics and engineering problems still remain. Fissile material degrades, explosives require expert handling, and arming systems need to be tightly controlled. Non-state groups lack the capability to build such weapons, but the spread of drone technology has raised the alarm. Unlike missiles or bombers, drones are cheap, ubiquitous, and difficult to stop. A device once requiring a two-man team could be delivered by a remote control aircraft or drone. This leads to the nightmare.
Right, so just going into a little bit of, the whole drone situation. All right, so if you got drones, don't be flying your little drones over the military bases, boy, they're gonna come for you. But nah, just joking. But just a little bit of info on that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and close with I'm gonna let the man close this video, but he's gonna say something very important, man. It's about Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua knew what he was doing when he gave them the wisdom to create ICBMs, man. And it's a reason, because it was prophesied. He told us it was going to be ICBMs, figs falling from a shaking fig tree, man. Stars falling from heaven. Let me get there. All right here.
It had recognised the danger and withdrew their smallest weapons. But could we really go smaller? Could we make, say, a nuclear hand grenade? That really would be a suicide mission, wouldn't it? But no, the physics just won't work at that size. Even with advanced reflectors and compression, you still need several kilograms of fissile material for a core, and then several more kilograms of high explosives to compress it. That sets a minimum size, about the size of a backpack. Below that, the weapon simply won't function, or it will be so unstable that it becomes more dangerous to the user than the target. Today, nuclear deployment has shifted focus. Rather than physically smaller packages, designers have pursued lower yield, but with more highly efficient warheads mounted on precision missiles. These are obviously much larger than backpack devices, but they allow more controlled escalation in theory. Concerns about the brief precision missiles. These are than physically smaller packages, designers have pursued lower yield, but with more highly efficient warheads mounted on precision missiles. These are obviously much larger than backpack devices, but they allow more controlled escalation in theory. Concerns about the
Right. Again, it's about the ICBMs. It's about the weapons of the Lord's indignation. All right. That's what the prophecy is. That's what's going to happen. All right. Now, anything can happen in between that, as far as, so-called terrorist attacks or staged terrorist attacks or just real deal terrorist attacks. But the prophecy is nuclear destruction, World War III. Right. But just to answer the question, about briefcase nukes, all right, for people who, trying to scare factor people into, you know, at jobs and businesses, check this out.
briefcase nukes still persist, fueled by rumours of Soviet portable devices in the 1990s. This came about when in 1997, General Alexander Ledbed claimed that out of 100 to 500 total, but corroborated ultimate nuclear device, briefcase alive, even if it can't be ever been produced by the US. Briefcase can be a lot bigger than a briefcase. But there is just no evidence that anything approaching the size of a briefcase nuke had ever been produced by the US or the Soviets, although it has been a staple of spy fiction for decades. Approaching the size of a briefcase nuke had ever been produced by the US or the Soviets, although it has.
All right, so Lord, when this lesson was edifying, Shalom and DTA.